Oscar Bevis for the Stomping Ground, powered by Wow Hydrate and available on DAZN. We're at DAZN HQ with Mr. Frank Warren and Mr. Eddie Hearn. I'll start with you. Ed, it's good to see you. How's things?
Very good. Back from Sydney and now on to Altrincham Ice Rink for the big debut of Pat Brown Next Gen show. As we get ready for Boots against Stanionis, big show in Sheffield with Dalton Smith, Conor Benn against Chris Eubank, Riyadh season, Mad Weekend, and Frank's got his big shows coming up as well, so all good, mate.
Yeah. And on to you, Frank, and take as long as you want to answer this because Eddie's going to hold the mic, I believe. Are we passing or you're going to pass? Oh, he's let you off this. He's let you off this time. DAZN headquarters. Does this feel like home? Do you know?
It is now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And for quite a long time now, and I'm delighted we're here. We got our first show on the 5th of April in Manchester. We've got a great fight with Joe Joyce against Hergovich. We've got the British title fight, heavyweight title fight, and a fabulous undercard. So I'm looking forward to that. I think we're off then to Nottingham for a sellout show between Anto Kakachi and Lee Wood, which looks like being a barnstormer with again a fantastic undercard up to Glasgow, and we got Josh there. In with Echo Esserman, which is a fabulous fight. That's got fight written all over it. And again, a fantastic undercard. Moses is going up there making his Scottish debut. So, yeah, busy times, busy schedule on the channel to watch the best boxing from around the world.
Obviously, people are still fascinated by, pardon me, the relationship between you two because obviously, we know it wasn't there. Can I take it back to 2020? Do you remember this lunch that was all the talk at the time? That you two were going to go for lunch, and it was so long ago. I think it was during the Tyson Wilder trilogy, and I think AJ was about to fight Pulev. That's when we're talking. If you two had had lunch then, what would have been different? And would it be different to you two and the relationship you've built now over the last 18 months?
I mean, I think that, His Excellency brought us together through opportunities for our fighters, opportunities for our business, and opportunities for fight fans. So there was a reason to do it. We were shoved together at the time, and I'm really glad we were. Maybe at that time we wouldn't have got things going. Maybe there wasn't the opportunities for the fighters that would have solved the rift, if you like, and the politics. But we're here. We genuinely enjoy it. We're generally excited. I'm enjoying the business more than I've ever enjoyed it, if I'm honest. And now, to add to all that, the bizarre part is we're on the same platform, which is one thing getting on, but at the same time, to be on the same platform and to be working together, 5v5s, our fighters v his fighters, but the competitive streak is still there. We still want the best shows on DAZN. He wants the best shows on DAZN. It's just that if we haven't got the best shows on DAZN, at least it's on the same platform. And we're all growing subscribers, and we're providing, most importantly, the most incredible value for money for DAZN subscribers.
Yeah, because thinking about that time, and I'll say this to you, Frank, would it be fair to say there was even a time where perhaps you didn't really even want each other's fighters to succeed? We all know the clip of you singing when Dillian got defeated, and I know you said a couple choice things about Dubois after the Joe Joyce defeat, which perhaps didn't help at the time. Was it really that fierce back then where there was kind of even fighters that were associated with each other you were kind of didn't mind seeing not do as well, perhaps?
Of course. I've got to be very honest about that. Yeah, I mean, there was some fun moments and, a lot of things were said, especially a lot down to you guys with the clickbait and so forth and us responding to it. But the facts of the matter are, or were, and we still are, that we're fierce competitors. And, one of his guys gets beat and one of our guys get beat. And I'm sure there was no sympathy for it. But then you turn the clock round back to the Riyadh season, we're sitting there cheering each other's fighters on, which I thought was really good. I never thought I'd be doing that ever, but we were. And it's moved on since then. And, all that stuff you talk about and people talk about, that's yesterday. We deal with today and the future. And today, and I suppose in some ways for a year and a half or so, we've been working collectively with HE on some of the fights here just ourselves, making fights happen, enjoying working together. Today We're just looking at putting a 5v5 together, which we've sent off, which in fact we've sent 10 fights over, which feature each other's fighters. And, you know, to pick five of those fights out, or maybe do two 5v5s, who knows. But they're quality fights. I know we'll do fabulous business on pay-per-view here. And that's where we're at. Moving forward, we're working on the same channel now, and we want that to be a success. We want them to get more subscribers. We want it to be competitive because that is good for boxing, good for our respective businesses.
Yeah. Eddie, can I ask you what the feeling would be like ahead of another 5v5? Because I guess Frank could be very petty and sit on the win and be like, we're never doing another 5v5, I'm keeping the 5-0 or 10-0. Is there like a real excitement to try and get that back, or is there some real nervousness that Frank might double down?
No, honestly, like obviously I want to win bad,
yeah.
But what the 5v5 will do is create opportunities, some of which will be life-changing opportunities for our fighters. And also, it'll provide incredible content for our customers and for subscribers, and great anticipation for fight fans. And the first one was incredible, the concept, the narrative, the numbers. You know, we got smashed. But at the end of the day, I can only make the fights, and it's down to the fighters. And, you know, we've put a brilliant list together to His Excellency, and hopefully we can get it over the line for the summer.
How often do you mention the 5v5?
Not at all, only every other day.
I was going to say, do you sometimes just ring Eddie up and at the start of like a conversation about a fight that's completely different, just go, do you remember last June?
No, I'd never do it. I mean, it's, you know, if you ring my phone, you know, it goes to message. It says, remember 5v5. But that's happened. It's great. For us, it was brilliant. But it's brilliant for everybody. It worked, and the concept works, and it'll work again. And you know, Eddie wants his revenge, and we want to keep delivering for our guys. And he's quite right what he says. Once they get into the ring, it's not in our hands; it's in the fighters' hands. Yeah. So, you know, just keep doing them. Let's keep putting them on. Because I'll tell you what, everybody loved it. Everybody enjoyed the concept. Everybody enjoyed. We enjoyed it, obviously, but I mean, it was a great concept, or is a great concept. Sorry.
Yeah. Can I ask you, Frank, what's the main difference between Queensbury now you're on DAZN and what you had perhaps before on TNT? Is there any different, or do you just kind of roll in the same?
More dates. We built a fabulous roster of fighters, which were on TNT. We're bringing them over now to DAZN, and the heavyweights division. We got some really good fights coming up. Some good fights in all weights, and we'll be expanding that by doing some of those in different countries.
Yeah. Just talking about the heavyweights, I've got to mention Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul. Does it make sense? Like, is it something you could look
for
at
AJ,
and go,
yeah. I mean, yeah. Look, I think Jake's a very clever guy. You know, I think he's doing great things with MVP. I think he is a little bit. Look, he wants to create crazy moments. He wants to make a huge amount of money, but sometimes there's just, you know, delusion can get you in a little bit of bother, especially when it's physical, right? But I genuinely believe he thinks he can beat Canelo and AJ because he's got people around him that tell him how great he's looking in the gym, that his speed and movement will actually cause AJ a major problem. I mean, it's quite bizarre, but if it works, it works. And yeah, you know, we get the question. When it happened, I phoned AJ, I said, look, I'm going to get the question from the media. What do you want me to say? And he said, tell him, yeah, I'll do it. I mean, why wouldn't I? We're not defending world titles. We're not trying to become undisputed. We don't own that. So we're looking for a fight. And if there's a huge amount of money to have a fight with Jake Paul, you'd be an idiot not to when we're in our position. Yeah. So, yeah, we'd be welcome to. I don't like the 2026 talk. Nothing's going to change in a year. So if you want to do it, let's do it now.
Yeah. Frank, you were quoted in saying that, you know, once this injury and whatnot was passed, that AJ will and obviously can with ease jump into something quite big. But I guess for you, you're talking about Joseph Parker in that sense.
Well, no. If we don't make the fight with Usyk for the 4 belts, then his mandatory is the WBO, and that's Joe Parker.
what's,
about that, eh?
well, if you let me speak, Ed, then
Well, not so clever now, are you?
maybe not. How keen are you on Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's definitely not the first or second choice. I mean, it's Fury and Dubois are the first and second choices, but one might not be available and we might miss the boat on the other. So if we do, he's got to fight. And if it's not Jake Paul, it's going to be a top 10 heavyweight. And that, you know, the guy that's on the hottest run is Joseph Parker. I mean, I love Joe. I think he deserves a shot at the world heavyweight title. But if Usyk fights Parker, then all of a sudden, Usyk fights Dubois, Joe's looking for another big fight. And the biggest fight for him is AJ. So, yeah, we could run that back. You know, first fight was a good fight, and Joe's in a great run of form. So, don't rule it out.
Do you think, knowing Tyson, that watching Anthony Joshua fight Jake Paul is the sort of thing that can make him go, actually, what is going on? It should be me in there. Just something ridiculous, perhaps, rather than watching an AJ Joseph Parker. Something that makes Tyson sit up and go, what? This should be me. I need to come back to this.
I spoke to Tyson last time I spoke to him. He said he's not watched any boxing.
None at all?
None. That's what he told me. He came to a fight, see his cousin fight, but he only watched that one fight and left. So the answer to that is, if he watches it, who knows? But, you know, he's happy. He's where he's at now. He's in a good place. And he's got some really good projects lined up, and that's where he's at. If he changes his mind, he changes his mind. If he don't, he don't. I'm not going to try and influence him in any way.
Yeah. Just a final one from me. We lost some boxing personalities over the weekend. They're intertwined in a couple of stories that I read. A brilliant one from Jeff Powell. But Colin Hart and George Foreman. Just a word from you both, because I know you spoke to people about it and said some bits, but just for the sake of us in this interview, just a word from you both on the pair of those.
Well, it's ironic that the both of them passed away within a couple of days of each other. Colin, the last British journalist to have seen the Rumble in the Jungle. He watched that fight. He was there reporting on it. He's the last of that generation. George Foreman, one of the holy trinity of heavyweights of the 60s and 70s, involved in some unbelievably good fights. He's an iconic sportsman, was the oldest guy to win the world heavyweight title. He's 45 years odd of his age when he did that, and I was lucky enough to promote him in 1990 when I brought him over on his second coming. And condolences to his family for their sad loss. Colin Hart, the doyen of boxing writers, you know, probably the most respected writer in Britain, was his own man, very opinionated, stuck by his guns, a great family man, his wife Cindy. He was very proud of her and his children and his grandchildren, spoke with them a lot about them when, you know, certainly when I was out, I had conversation with him. You know, just a really, really respected guy. You know, everything he did in boxing, he did it because of his belief as a writer, as a person. You couldn't sway him. He wouldn't stand for no nonsense from anybody. You know, I remember going for a lunch with him probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and he didn't look himself there. He'd lost a lot of weight. His mind was there, but he lost a lot of weight, and within a few days he called me and told me he'd been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He faced up to it, and what he said was so brave. That he had a fantastic life, had a fantastic family, fantastic marriage. He wouldn't change a moment of it. And you know, for someone to be so philosophical about that takes a lot of courage, and that's what he was. He was a courageous writer, courageous man. He was a man's man, and we all loved him, and we will all miss him. You know, this is the guy that showed up at press conferences when he weren't reporting, showed up at York Hall to watch the fights because he was a fighting man through and through, and you know, leaves a big, big hole in boxing, and he'll leave a big, massive hole as a West Ham supporter. No one was more so mad about his team than he was, and he got mad sometimes on their performances. But I'll miss his calls. I'll miss those calls we used to have on the Sundays where we talked about all these various things. But a fabulous guy, and as I say, we will as boxing as a sport will miss him, and our condolences to his wife Cindy, his children, and his grandchildren. God bless him and rest in peace.
Yeah. And just Eddie, obviously with Colin, like you said, a titan of kind of boxing journalism in a writing sense. But when he started doing the interviews on camera, there was some pretty iconic, like scathing attacks that he kind of dished out. And even the way he said it and the voice he said it in made it kind of iconic. So iconic for Colin. Obviously George, iconic with the record that I believe might stand forever. In terms of
yeah, I mean, for Colin, Frank knew Colin a lot better than I did, but I think the one thing that I remember about Colin was he didn't care who he upset. It was just he was going to give his opinion. We had a couple of clashes, I think, over AJ and other bits and pieces, but he was always real to himself, and that's the way they reported. I think one of the things I can say about Colin is when I first started promoting, if I ever saw Colin at one of my press conferences, I would say in my head, "Oh, Colin Hart's here." He was that sort of. He almost had that kind of aura about him as a journalist. That you knew. Although he would go to these small shows, if he was there reporting, this is a big show. And for Foreman, I was part of Foreman's. Well, in terms of watching the second coming. I didn't get to witness the savagery of the first tenure as world heavyweight champion when he went to Jamaica and fought Frazier, almost as like an opponent, and went and just destroyed him out there. I got the comeback period, which was incredible because it was this big cuddly bear who came back, and people don't realise before he beat Mike, he didn't just come back and beat Michael Moore. He came back and he had a lot of fights over a long period. Frank promoted one of them in London. He was saying today, and he actually lost to Tommy Morrison in the fight before Michael Moore. And I remember watching that fight with Moore, and I think they chose Foreman because he was a big name. And I remember watching it and seeing him knock out Michael Moore. And he just went over to the corner and just went down on a knee and, said his thank you to his Lord and Saviour. And, it was a historic moment. So rest in peace, Colin and Big George.
Absolutely, rest in peace to the pair. I want to end on this, and this isn't from a fan. This is actually a question that someone asked me in the pub, right? Because the thing people ask me about the most is Fury AJ and the pair of you, right? So they wanted to know, when you two are at dinner or you're at a business meeting and you kind of go away from boxing for a second, what sort of stuff do you two put to rights? What do you chew the fat over? Like, what is the conversation at the table when you're not talking boxing?
Well, it's 99.9% boxing, because if we're not talking about the business, we're talking about boxing and fights and whatever.
99.9%.
Yeah,
really?
because that's our life, to be honest. Sometimes it'll be about, kids or grandkids or whatever. Sometimes it'll be about Arsenal.
Frank
I'm a small Spurs fan, so... and other times it might be about, I don't know, we like a nice restaurant. Frank's a bit of a wine connoisseur, if I'm honest, So, I suppose that's it really, isn't it?
Yeah, and some of these CLICKBAIT merchants. Talk about them.
I talk about Oscar like that.
I was say, you aiming this at me or no?
No, a bit of fun.
I'm in the clear.
We all have a good time when we're around that table. It's nice just to have the respect we got for each other and the respect we got for our business and the fighters, and it's you're sitting there, you're basically bullshitting away with each other and having a bit of fun, and how me as an old guy, all I keep doing is how it used to be. He talks about how it is, and we just we just enjoy ourselves and most importantly, drink some fine wine.